All right. So kind of to review, some people have worked with this. Many people have not worked with these self-correcting
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the
tests.
trying again. Hey, how you talk about me?
So what we're going to talk about again today is how to do these, make these self-correcting tests or worksheets, how to get them to grade by themselves. You can email them back to the students with or without their answers. And then how to see the breakdown of how many were right, how many were wrong, but how many kids answered each one. So a real simple form. I think I clicked on the wrong one. So this is what it looks like when we're trying to put it together. And this is just a real simple one that I put together. Real simple. It's called sample test. So all I'm doing is collecting their name, their address, and asking a simple question. So to make this form, I go to my Google Drive. There's on the kids have a button right about here that has like 9 little squares on it. And if they click on that, it will open up their Google Apps for them. You can also just type in drive.google and it'll bring you here.
Why isn't it across the top?
Ours is on the right,
Ours is right here.
near your name.
That's so weird. Why did you do that?
Click on it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Google, last week Google updated this. Why the kids is different from ours, I can't answer that. All right, so to do this, we're going to create a form. We're going to create it and share it. And you can either choose a layout or you can just go with the plain. And it doesn't matter because even if you just use the default now, you can always change it later. Or if I choose Cherry Blossom now and decide I hate that later on, that's fine too. I'm just going to call this simple test. Call it whatever you want. And even if you leave it as untitled, you can always rename it later. So I'm just doing simple test, and then I'm going to click on OK. And it brings you to the drafting portion on how to do this. Now there are a couple of settings up at the top. I tend to leave mine just with this top one checked because depending upon which ones you check down here, if you check the second one, when the students submit, they can then click a button that says show me all my answers that they could very easily take a screenshot of if they hadn't thought about it beforehand and email it to somebody. So I don't, and when I give my tests, I walk around so that they're a little less likely to take screenshots and mess with things. If you do a progress bar at the bottom, if you're doing a simple one-page test worksheet rubric, it's not going to matter. If you do multiple pages, or you can set it up so that if your gender is a girl, you'll answer these 5 questions. If you're a male, you'll answer these 5 questions. So the progress bar is a little more fitting for that. But if you're just doing a simple, like 10-question kind of a test or a worksheet, I don't usually use that. This is the name that will appear at the top of the test. For right now, it's the same. You can rename it. I'm not sure why you would. But this will tell about the test. If you want to give a description, you can just click in the little box down below for data purposes. Depending upon what you're doing, you can or you don't have to though. And then it automatically starts you off with your first question. So my simple little form, let's see if I can find this. I put in what is called, before my first question, I put in a section header. So one of the last tests that I gave, I had true, false, multiple choice, short answer, and so I put these little headers in so that the students at least knew roughly what they were going to be doing. So if I come back to this form that we're doing, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to click on done here. I don't want to have this answer, or this question rather. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So if I want to get rid of this, I can just click on the garbage can, and that will delete that little question. Under add item is where you've got your different kinds of questions that you can ask. These are some more advanced things. You can put in the date, you can put in the time, and this is your layout. So I just did a section header. When you click on section header, it looks the same. So for now, I'm just looking for student information. My big thing with forms is think about how you're laying out this before you start building it. Because if I try to put in, if I click done and then I want to put a question before student information, or if I've got 2 questions in already and I want to reorder it, the form itself will reorder, but when you get the information back in the Excel spreadsheet, it will not reorder it. It will be in the order that you're putting it in here. The spreadsheet doesn't reorder. So try to lay it out in how you think you're going to do it, or delete the one ahead and redo it. It just makes life on the teacher end a little bit easier. So I'm going to click on done, and there's our section header. The next question that I had in mind was, what is the student's name? I like to give them a little example of how I want it. I just like looking at things alphabetically. So that's going to be the question is going to be student name and then last name, first name. So I'm going to add a new item. This is going to be text. And you've got 2 different kinds of text. There's a short text or a long text. Name's kind of short, so just text is fine. And if you want to make sure that your students are going to answer each of the questions, you need to click on required question. If they skip a required question and they hit submit, it'll send off all sorts of warning. It comes up in red and it's outlined, got to answer this question. So I click on done. The next thing on my simple thing is looking for their email address so that I can email them their results. Without that, you can't email them without them getting all their answers. So I'm going to add a new text field, just short and sweet. Or I'm just going to say UASD Gmail address. And then underneath, what I've started doing is putting name at upperadams.org, and I can't tell you how many kids still put upperadams.com, which means that when you send them their grades, you get a thing back saying this was undelivered. And I can pretty much tell you which students can't get it straight. I'm going to make this required, but I'm not done yet. Under data validation, if you click on that, it opens up this little drop down. Click in the box, and you can choose how you want it. So I'm going to make this text, and it must contain an email address. So, and obviously you can choose any one of those other ones. And that's all I need to do to ensure that I get an email address back from them. So I'm going to click done, and then I'm going to add my one big question. So it's just going to be text. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to be the other. We can always change it. Nope, it's a drop down. All right, so if you had chosen text already, to change your question type, you can just click on the box, the little arrow right here. And I'm going to choose from a list. So it's going to give me some options. So I can say male. I can hit the tab key. Female. And I'm going to make it required. I'm sorry, I didn't even put in my, what is your gender? Now this is for if you decide if they're male, go to this page. If they're female, go to that page. But I wasn't planning on going into that right now. So I'm going to click on done.
No help text?
Well, if they can't figure out what gender is. I mean, I don't know about your students. I think mine can figure it out. Okay, so as far as this simple little test that we're putting together here, the test itself is done. If you want to personalize the information, once they hit submit, you want to personalize a message back to them, you can do it down here. So maybe I click behind recorded. I'm going to hit the enter key twice. Now, complete, I don't know, I'll just say worksheet 1. Mrs. Smith. Obviously, this bottom checkbox will let them edit their responses after they've submitted them. Don't want them doing that. Publish and show a link to results of this form to all respondents. I don't think we want the kids doing that, even if it's just a worksheet. Don't want that. And you don't actually have to send a form to your students, depending upon how you have set up your life in the Google world. I've set my life up so that for each one of my classes, if I go to my Google Drive, each one of my classes has a folder out here, so my business English kids would go into business English, and they can go into a folder here, and they would find whatever test or worksheet or whatever, and I tell them what they're looking for. If you're not set up that way, then you can send a form and either put in the group name, if you've set up your groups within Google, or you can type in each student's name and find their email address and send it to them that way. So let's pretend that we are now the student. As a teacher, you want to make sure that it's accepting responses. If you're not ready for them to see it, if you do a do not accept responses, this is what they would see when they try to access this. So if you've got it in a folder, this is what they would see. When you're ready for them, you would it's just a toggle switch on and off. So if you go to your View Live form and just take the test once or twice. You could use your Gmail for one of them. Do it a second time, change your answer up maybe, and use, even if it's one that doesn't exist right now, doesn't matter. But I want you to take it, I'll just say 3 times. So I'm going to submit. It's going to say thanks. You'll see here there is a link here for you to submit another response if you want. And you can turn that submit another response off. All right, so I did mine 3 times. From the teaching standpoint, you'll notice I'm back on where I authored, where I put together the test. Next to responses, it has 3. So I know I've got 3 responses so far, and that number will change as the kids start adding or submitting their form to you. To look at what they've said, you're simply going to click Choose Response Destination. And it's going to ask you, do you want to make a new spreadsheet, or do you want to have a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet? I tried this for a while. Terry does this with her tickets out the door. I find it a little more confusing because I'm folder oriented. I just say, give me a new one. So for now, I'm just going to say new spreadsheet. This is what's going to call it. It's the same title as my form with just the word responses. So I'm going to say create. And it's creating it. And you can see the status up next to accepting responses. And when it's done, it changes to view responses. So now I can click on view responses. And it takes me to the spreadsheet. This is a very short spreadsheet because we only had the one actual question. At the bottom, the tab just says Form Responses. Now, if you want it to grade this for you, you need to install a script. So we're going to go over to Insert, a Script. And the script, it's funny, I listen to some people on these webinars, they pronounce it Flubaroo, others pronounce it Flubbaroo. I'm going to go with Flubaroo. F-L-U-B-A-R-O-O, Flubaroo. F-L-U-B-A-R-O-O. And click on the search. And it'll find the simple script here, so you want to install it. And at some point, it's going to ask you for permission for access. This is being used by people around the planet. And I've not yet heard of anybody who's having a problem with this. So I always click on Continue. If you don't click Continue, it won't install. You won't be able to use it. So it opens up this. The app would like access to this stuff. I always just accept it. And then it takes a second while it installs it on your spreadsheet. It says it's installed, this little green bar says it's installed, so I can close this. And nothing looks like it's changed except to the right of Help, it now says Flubaroo. So if you click on Flubaroo, you can grade the assignment. It's running the script. And then it needs to know how to know what's right and what's wrong and how to point it, how to assign points. So the student name is obviously going to identify the student. The Gmail is not worth a point. It's going to identify a student. And I'm going to award 1 point for what's your gender. I could change how many points I want this worth, and it will automatically grade it accordingly. So the gender is, for me, is worth 1 point, so I'm going to click on Continue. And it's going to say, okay, I've got how you want it set up and how you want me to grade it. Where's my rubric? So when I do my worksheets or my tests, instead of my name, I put teacher in all caps. It's just easier for me to find. So when you figure out what is going to be your answer, you're just going to select that. So I make the form and then I take it as if I'm the student, but use the name teacher as my name. And then I'm going to click on Continue. And it processes, and it thinks. And then it says, okay, I'm done. I can view my grades. And it will tell me, and you always have to have 2 people taking the test, plus your rubric person, which is why I had you guys do it 3 times. So it's my rubric, my teacher is not on here. So it grades it according to how I wanted it. Obviously, I wanted it to say that gender was going to be female, not male. So this tells you who did not, or how many people did not pass that question or did not reach, I forget if it's 65, it's somewhere around 65. So anything that did not pass, it will automatically color for you. So that I can go along, and it's already graded it. This me got 100%, this me failed. If you want to know exactly what your breakdown is, you can go up to Form and Show Summary of Responses. And that will build you a quick little chart as to how many people, in this case, were female, how many people were male. It includes you, the teacher, your rubric as one of those, which is why I have 3 answers up there. Which I think is kind of cool. So you can have your test of 10 questions and know this one nobody got, this one I had 50% got it right, or whatever. So that's the down and dirty. This is a summary that shows you how many possible points this little test or worksheet was worth, what the average points earned was, since I had 2 people, 1 failed, 1 did not. The average was a half a point. I had 2 counted submissions, and there was only 1 student who was really low. At the bottom, you'll notice it added a second tab called Grades, so that if I click on the student submissions, I can still see what each student individually answered. So I've got it graded. Now I need to email the kids. If I go back up to Flubaroo, second choice down is email your grades. And so if I click on that, it will run the script again. And this right here, if you leave this checked, it will send the kids their answers, right and wrong. So I always uncheck this. If you want to add a message here, like the last time I said, next we're going to go into travel, the travel unit. You can do that. But the email address question obviously is not going to be student name, so you'd have to choose the Gmail address and then continue, and it will email it. If I continue, obviously all my email addresses are going to get this. But from a teacher standpoint, 2 grades were sent off successfully. And if I go back to my Gmail, I'm going to refresh my page. And yes, I have a billion tabs at the top open.
You really do.
These are all my assignment trackers
Yeah.
that I'm trying to make sure I've got all the assignments from all the kids. So here's my record that Flubaroo will automatically send to me saying this is how many people were sent. And eventually I should, as the student, receive an email here too. But it's taking a little bit longer.
It's almost instantly, as soon as I get it.
The kids have it, yeah.
It's very fast.
And the kids like it. And I've gotten some kids, Melissa Sheffer, well, which question did I get wrong? Okay, well, let's go back and I can look at it based on the spreadsheet. Does anyone have a question about that stuff? Yes, sir.
I was with you until you got to the spreadsheet. I missed the step where you got the spreadsheet.
Where I got to the spreadsheet?
Yeah, where you got to that.
Okay. So this is the form that I made.
Yep.
So there are 3 tabs up here. This will show you your live form. This one will show your responses. Yep. So if you click view responses, then it'll show you your spreadsheet. And then once I'm done giving my test, I can say not accepting this anymore so that kids in the other class can't see or these guys can't do it again. Yeah.
How did you make one of them the rubric?
Oh, when I just go into the live form and I take it as if I'm the student. And in my name, instead of putting my name, I put teacher
Yeah.
in all caps. Just makes it easier for me to choose when it says, okay, which one do you want to use for grading purposes? Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, when you do the Flubaroo and tell it to grade the assignment, it will ask which one do you want to use for grading purposes.
That's what I missed too. Okay, so I
Okay,
put
so-
teacher and then I choose teacher, then that, it knows then that that's my rubric.
Yeah, if
missed
I-
that.
And what I can do, let's
Say that again, or-
let's say I can always go back in and delete somebody if I want to re-email it to them. Or if you have a student who was absent and comes in like 3 days later and wants to take it, they can take it, and only the ones that the entries that do not have a check, an X next to it will be emailed, so that this student won't get emailed again. But I could go back to Flubaroo and regrade it if I wanted to, and it won't mess up the ones that were already graded. Yep, it's going to replace it, but it's not really replacing it, and it's going to regrade it. And so again, it's going to ask what identifies and what's worth a point. So I click on continue. And then it's the second question where it says, what do you want to use for grading purposes? And this is where normally I would have teacher here. And I would say, that's the one I want to use as grading. So select which submission you'd like to use as your answer key. So-
you have to do the Flubaroo after everybody's taken it?
No, you can do the Flubaroo before anybody's taken it.
Oh,
As long as
And then
you've
just
taken
regrade
it.
it when you're ready.
As long as you've taken it.
Mhm.
the answers.
Well, actually, I gave a test last week where I forgot to do it, and while the kids were taking the test, I was taking the test at the same time. So now my answer is embedded in with the 25 of them, which made teacher really easy to find.
Yeah.
So I was glad that I had done it that way. But you can have everybody take it and then you take it later. But then you don't have the opportunity to grade and email them their grades before they leave class.
Can they get this test, and let's say I have 4 classes, and I go,
Mhm.
can that student in period 1 get this test up to show student in period 4? Can they get to this test again to show it to them?
No. Once the kids are done taking the test, I always turn it off.
I have to remember to do that.
Yeah.
Before they could.
Right, if you don't say not accepting response, if you don't change that toggle to that, then anybody, they could send it to somebody, or they could say, oh, here's the test, you wanna look at it. But by doing this, so I'm saying, no, it's not accepting responses, so now if I click, as the teacher, I click view live form, I will see exactly what the kids see, that's what they see.
But what if I turn it on for period 3 and period 4 gets smart enough to know that I'm given the same test, they can go out there and see that, can't they?
Depending on how smart they are.
Okay, I'm just.
Which is why, in my Google world, if I close all this, I don't want all this closed up. My personal finance down here, you'll see I have period 2 and period 7. So only the kids in my period 2 class can see what's in there, and that's where I put their tests.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So if you're not assigned to that folder, you won't be able to get in.
So they can go into that folder.
They can go into this folder right now. If they were to go in there now, they would see this test and they would see this test, but if they go to click on it, hopefully, oh, because I'm the author, that's why, but it's not accepting responses. So they would see, A, it's not accepting responses at this time.
Can you change it to be viewable at a certain time?
I can go in at any time and just retoggle that. And now it's accepting responses again.
But you can't hide it completely?
Well, you can unshare it. So back,
Set that up to be like an automatic share, like at 10 o'clock, the night before I'm sending this up.
I have not found that yet. So if I just leave it that it's not accepting responses, I haven't had anybody get this quarter into doing this. And I've been using this almost since day one, and nobody's been able to get to it because I
Set it
remember
as
to
needed,
turn it
right?
off. And so at the beginning of class, I'll say, all right, guys, get ready to take your test. Go to your drive, but don't go into, because they'll see it in the shared with me folder. So don't go in there yet, or you're just gonna have to refresh, you know?
You know,
So.
study was hanging.
Um,
Used to be able to put the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that, but
It's nice, but Google may get there.
there's a lot of
They're just not
pluses.
there yet.
Do you know, is there a timetable as to when study was going to go away?
Every time I ask Mr. Sterner, he says, it's not going away. But I
know
have,
better, I'm sure
if
it
this
is
is
for spending
free
time.
and
Yeah.
study was, they're not getting it for
I just
free,
want to know how long I have to do, because
I would trial this once or
He said it's
twice.
not gonna like us to, people have so much in there, but certain people have
I do have,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I just wanna know what
I'm
my
sure there,
timeline is,
if
when
they,
I need to get the
if
stuff
they
over
decide to
you.
get rid of study was, I'm sure there will be a lot of
Yeah,
lead time to that. It's not gonna be, okay, on Monday, it's going away. That,
I
it would
do
freak
that,
me out
yeah.
because I've got a lot of stuff in there.
I can quit. Yes.
You're not a quitter.
So I do tests this way, I do worksheets this way, I'm starting to do my rubrics.
Many things. Why it's still
I'm starting to do my rubrics this way, so all I have to do is open up a form and fill out the form as if it's a test. And say, okay, you know, of these three, did the student know 1, 2, 3, or 4? Well,
Can you
this
tell
student
if
or
they're
2.
talking about it?
No, because I don't have it on this,
Oh, okay.
on this drive.
Okay.
But it,
That's okay. I know, it's interesting to see what you meant by it.
well, if I were to switch, I could do it right here.
Okay, don't just stop today, that's too much.
All right.
That's too much, that's too much. I need this to digest.
Okay, digest it, and
Yeah,
we'll
digest.
do that another day. To break down the wrong answers.
Not putting on labor all the time,
And it's 3:10, oh, 12.
you know what I mean?
Thank you, Smitty.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
At a later date, I will do another one of these where if you choose a certain answer, you can go somewhere else. Anybody who wants that?
Fall of next year.
Senior Sem just had the kids do a survey. So if you answered this, go here. And one of my interns did it on this. Because I can, because my interns have been doing stuff with teachers, yeah. So they kind of took it to a whole nother level. You're welcome.
Thank
You're welcome. Yeah. So that you're just-
That's what I was gonna ask, because she said if they misspelled words, that's the rubric. My first one, I.
You're welcome.
I don't know.
So have you developed any further questions?
Thinking when you,
Okay.
it has to be, you know, this higher order thinking is.
Said what you want to do and haven't figured out how to do.
I had a
Okay.
big difference on the check. That's when I had them all. just
Now I
checking to
doodly
see
do it.
they- Sure.
Yeah,
And then
I like to
just
doodly do it.
dropped it. So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness,
that.
it's freezing in here now. Look at that.
It's all in there, you can just keep copying and changing.
Just to copy it, as long as it's the next one, that's okay.
Well, as I said, if I don't go do this now, it's gonna leave me if I don't go do one in a couple of days.
Let me tell you something, it's obvious that people are not listening to the email thing. People still keep replying.
Oh, I know.
It's
Yeah,
getting
it's
better
just-
and better.
I mean, you have to think, and I sometimes like, look, you'll see, I have a sticky now, do not reply forward. Because I just get busy and I just.
Yeah.
Do you know
it's
what it
like-
is?
Or if it's
If
first
you
thing in
make
the
your
morning.
own, if you make your own, freezing cold. If you make your own, it's like for the high school, everyone edits your own, you add who you want in there.
Right,
And then you reply, you know.
That's
It's,
what
It's
I
because
said.
it's that.
Well, it's how it's set up.
Exactly,
and
that's
why
how it's
can't
set.
it be fixed so we don't keep having
Yes.
the same mistake, but nothing
Hey, you ladies
gets
at the computer, you know I can't even think that way.
We just keep saying, figure
I
it
want it
out.
fixed too, but I can't even think the way you guys.
But you know, I thought I saw something new the other day on it. You know how when you hit reply in a person's name, there was a reply and a reply all choice that I don't think was there about 3 weeks ago.
Well, they just did a whole bunch of updates.
That's
Yeah,
why
it's
I
there
said sometimes,
So
I saw
I'm
that
thinking,
too.
if when you hit that button, and if you were smart to hit reply, I'm thinking it's gonna work. I'm just curious, I would love to test it, but I'm not gonna because of everybody's whatever. But those 3 choices weren't there a couple
Prior
of
to
weeks
this
ago.
week,
Yeah, I thought the same thing
And the
too.
other thing is, most of those things are either first thing in the morning, you and Terry will post first thing in the morning, but most of them are in the elementary.
Well, and I mean, they're the obvious
yeah.
ones, but sometimes I think they're just sending to me. So if like Laura, if she does something preschool, I think it's just me. I don't think the whole school. And so instantly I just reply.
And then-
See, yeah,
Thing,
when you
I
go
ordered
down to that,
shirts, so Karen's, I mean, I was just thinking it was me and I didn't even think, but if I get something from Kay or it's obvious, then I'm like, okay, I
Then I
delete,
can
but
remember
I
it.
just.
But I'd like to
Gotta
try that other,
look and
I'd like
see
to try
who's-
that
who's
other
in the
thing because
reply.
I think it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have to think anymore.
You at all?
Yeah, I think there is you look, when somebody sends you, we give a mass one, and from somebody, get one from somebody, or you went from, so you don't have, Rich Sterner, but I don't know when if it would, like when you hit, no, I can, see, that's an old one, I think that's different, that's.
But when I reply, it's just him for that.
Yeah, that's what, so if,
Right.
if we were
because
looking
you
at
had
that.
to reply all.
Yeah, see, that's why I think if they, instead if they would hit that, not that other one, I think it works.
You mean if we get this one though, up here? It's still reply. But he probably did distribution.
Yeah,
That's
this is
why.
his- this
He
is his
doesn't do high
distribution.
school everyone, so it always goes
That will
back to
always
him.
work, okay.
So
She's got rid of some of her emails.
did it go to my trash probably? No, Michelle, no. No, that's just to me.
All right. What about?
Oh yeah,
Mine should be in
announcements.
the-
So that's in my announcements folder.
I need to hit reply.
Well, it's not gonna go anywhere yet.
Yeah, Connie's is just to her.
No, it went to up to the top right, it went to high school teachers, so that's.
Didn't me
Really?
when I
On
did.
hers,
Where's
yeah,
yours?
she,
I did up top and.
Up
but
here to
you
the
know-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
see,
it's
that
on
one,
Connie.
this one.
Yeah, but I saw something in my settings here that you choose for just to reply or reply all.
Yeah,
And I
did
made
you-
sure
you
that
were
I
there
was
that
just
day.
reply.
Oh, yeah, we've done that, yeah, I think I've done that too. I mean, I told the kids to change that also. But I swear it was over to the left on a reply that I saw the word reply. Maybe
Yours is reply, so why is yours coming up different than mine?
well, this is the unexplainable.
Because I did the same thing. Which announcement, morning or afternoon?
I'm gonna go morning. And reply. It's going to
Reply
high
up at
school.
the top,
It's going to top right.
Yeah.
It's going to high school teacher.
and mine came up to Connie.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, this is the part when we had this training, when you had this training. These are the questions.
we're having a meeting this week. Well, no, 'cause it's all online.
Yeah.
So it's not that anyone has to go.
And you don't have to keep together. You wouldn't have to keep together.
So there are 6 tests that you have to take.
But that's not good though, because that is, I thought you were gonna get a line, you know, so you can ask.
This is just how Google does it.
There,
There,
question.
there are probably forms that you have questions that you can
Well, I
answer.
think we should ask those research some of the things on those forms. That's their job. Have a good night, thank you, Ms. Smith.
You're welcome. Tracy, did you
What I
learn?
do and just go visit her.
So nothing new